Piki mai kaki mai no mai haere mai. I declare this meeting of the Wastewater Treatment Plant and Landfill Joint Committee open, 28 March 2023. Members are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed and to please use your microphones. I will lead out with our karakia, but please everybody join in. Toru wha. Whakatakata hau ki te uru. Whakatakata hau ki te tonga. Kia mā ki kina ki uta. Kia mā tātara ki tai. E hi ake ana. Te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, Porirua. Kia ora, everybody. Apologies have been received from Councillor Filo and Porirua Kelly. I'm going to move that those apologies be accepted. Do I have a seconder? Representative Allen, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed? Abstain? Declare the motion carried. Public forum. We have one individual coming in to speak in the public forum, Murray Wright from Your Bay, Your Say. Each speaker has 5 minutes to speak, including questions. Members can ask questions of clarification only and cannot enter into debate with the speakers. Speakers should take note of the restrictions in the standing orders, including that matters which are subject to separate hearing processes must not be discussed, and that the speaker cannot speak on an issue they have previously spoken about. Murray, please come over to the side here and you can speak for your 5 minutes, and we'll give you a note when the 4 minutes are up. While you're doing that, I'm just going to notice as well the arrival of Councillor McNulty from the Wellington City Council, who's here as the Wellington City Council's alternate, additional alternate. Please go ahead, Murray.
The treatment plant project upgrades. Below is a list of completed and planned upgrades that Veolia were given by Wellington Water when they were awarded the contract to operate the Porirua Wastewater Treatment Plant in July 2019. Mentioned in item 7.1.16 to 23, many upgrades below are needing further upgrades, i.e. band-aids, or have still not been completed, like the sludge, clarifier, dewatering process, milli screening to aeration basin upgrade. In July 2019, Wellington Water Limited handed over the operation of the Porirua treatment plant without an operational management plan. In October 2021, an independent review noted the OMP was still not in place, and despite recommendations, it took a further 18 months. In total, it has taken 5 years for the OMP and highlights a significant lack of responsibility and accountability from the operators and the managers of the plant. You can see some of the upgrades below, and also I have just given the chair another page that I received 5 years ago from the plant. Some of the UV plant malfunctions, 2021 on the 21st of January and 2023 March 21, 27th of October 22 and 15th and 21st of March 23. This is including the continuing wet weather and sludge malfunction events and the lack of data provided. For example, it is not clear if all flow into the plant is secondary treated, but it is clear on page 34 of the Spicer Landfill tonnage report that sludge tonnage is steadily increasing, as is the cost, currently $2 million per year since 2021. OIA IRO 299-2022, and is an indication that secondary treatment is not fit for purpose. Interesting is point 8 makes the comment, tonnage continues to increase, but it is anticipated that demand will drop off once the summer period has ended. The tonnage figures for 2022, the Spicer Landfill tonnage report, do not show this trend. Does Wellington Water hope people will poo less in the winter, or are they planning to skip some secondary treatment as they have been for many years? and below is, or what percentage flow coming into the plant is secondary treated. And there's just a little diagram there of the OIA IRO 245-2022 for the 19th of August. Answers from Greater Wellington Regional Council below for the incident of the 19th of August 21. At midday on the 19th of August, an email from a member of the public was received by Wellington Water, which stated, just looked out of my window and looks like there's a sludge carryover going on at the wastewater treatment plant at the moment. Quite a distinct plume around Rukatane Point, which seems to be increasing. And below is a picture taken by a member of the public on the 19th of August. Untreated discharge is obvious. And please provide evidence, including photos if possible, to show that the incident was compliant with the resource consent. The effluent quality results, Veolio forwarded photos of the Rukatane outfall on the 19th of August 2021 around 14:30 hours. The photo shows there was no distinct discoloration beyond the 200-metre mixing zone at the time the photo was taken. And then look again, it is obviously untreated on the 19th of August. We do not believe the information provided for both OIA's factual levels are significantly higher in dry weather events, and the continuation of diluting and dumbing down data is a gross disregard of the cultural impact for mana whenua and the health and safety of the public. There was no notification to the public of the 8 sludge plant malfunctions that occurred from May to August 21.
Mari, I'm going to stop you there because your 5 minutes has concluded, and there will be no time for questions from councillors. So thank you, Mari, for coming in.
And
Appreciate
the rest is on the
Indeed.
handout. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. Let us move on to the next item. I call for any conflicts of interest that need to be declared. Any conflicts of interest? I see none. There are no items of extraordinary business. So we will move on to the minutes, confirmation of minutes. We are asked to confirm the minutes of the first meeting of the Joint Committee held on the 6th of December 2022. I move that we confirm the minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I will now put the motion, unless there are any comments on those. No, I will now put the motion. It's just been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Abstentions? I declare the motion carried. Report 7.1, Wastewater Treatment Plant Update, November 2022 to February 2023. I'm going to move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duncan? Excellent. So that's just to put it on the table for debate. Time for officer comment from David Down. Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of points to note about the report this time around. We normally have our attachments from Wellington Water, their regular report, plus then also the project's update. Got a couple of additional attachments this time around in response to query regarding the joint venture assets. So I've noted a very brief summary of what the joint venture assets are, and then included a map of the network coloured to show the PCC network assets versus the joint venture assets. And then again, in response to some interest at the last committee meeting, I've attached the Know Your Pipes update for the Know Your Pipes project to the end of December 2022 for information. We've got Mr. Jeremy McKibben and Mr. Stephen Hutchinson here from Wellington Water, and I'll ask if there's any questions or comments, please.
Apologies. Any additional comment from the Wellington Water representatives in advance? Obviously, the items that have been tabled should be taken as read. Do you have any additional comment?
Just that, I'm just introducing Blair Johnson, who's joined our team, replacing Anna Hector as the contract head of the wastewater contract with Veolia. And just a point to note that we've had a couple of teething problems with the UV system. One of them is mentioned in here on the 15th of March. The other one was on the 21st of March, where we had a couple of short duration teething issues with the UV system. We currently have a expert over from the equipment supplier from Australia on site at the moment looking into it. And yeah, nothing else other to add. I guess the one key item of note is that the bypass events that the treatment plant used to experience with heavy weather, rainfall events, are no longer occurring with the work that's going on with the hydraulic upgrade.
Okay. I'm going to open up questions from councillors, committee members rather. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks for the report there. Page 13, treatment plant operations. Item 10 says, Veolia have crafted a draft operations manual. It seems to have taken an inordinate amount of time to get that together. Will we get to see a copy of that?
We can provide a copy of that. When I say that they've drafted it, it's been a work in progress. I guess it's a live document. It's a living document that changes all the time. So, yeah, the current iterations, we can provide that.
One more was page 14, item 19. Allowance of 25 million included in the unconstrained 2024 investment advice to the National Transition Unit, with a further placeholder for sludge dryer included in that advice. What if there's a change of government and Three Waters is stalled for a few more years? Is that money going to be put forward by ratepayers? Is it?
Through the chair, Three Waters is mandatory at the moment. So as an officer of the council and as an elected member, we've been told it's mandatory. It's happening on the 1st of July 2024. We'll see what happens with a change in government. But again, when councillors asked me about this, I remind you that the National Party was together with the Labor Party when the Three Waters kicked off because of the drinking water problem that happened in Hastings and some people died. So quite what variation happens in the future, we don't know, but I think we have a mayor who meets with the new Minister of Local Government who's advocating for this council. And I would think the amount of investment that has already occurred by the government, we will be seeing reform of the Three Waters moving forward.
Just got more questions. Page 18, the capital project update, January 2023, the White House Road stages 3 and 4. Subsidence is evident and close monitoring is recommended. So an alternative conceptual pipeline route is being developed to avoid the organic layer under the current route. Is that alternate route a given, or is it being planned just in case the monitoring raises real concerns? And since the monitoring is going to cover 2 years, what does the final bullet point of starting to look at scoping the next stages of the project look like?
I can talk to that. Having seen the analysis a few months ago, so what the geotechnical investigations found was that there was some organic material, trees and other type of things which had settled. The conclusion from that analysis was that most of the settling that is going to happen has happened. And so the monitoring over the last few years has shown that the pipes remained in basically the same condition. It does dip, which is being monitored obviously. So as part of the medium long-term planning, we're looking for an alternative route because replacing the pipe on that alignment doesn't look attractive.
The Semple Street spec sampling result, has the cause of the high E. coli rate been traced?
I don't have any personal knowledge of that, to be honest.
Would it be possible for some
Through
response?
the chair, we have the Know Your Pipes project presenting to council in April. They're back in front of council for an update. We might be able to get an answer then. Good.
I have Councillor Leggett on the speaking order, and I'll have Representative Allen.
Thank you. Can I just ask if we have, did I hear you right saying there have been no bypass events? Can you explain the picture that we were shown on the same day, the 19th? Would that not count?
I think that was August 2021. So
Oh,
it
was
was
it?
quite
Sorry.
historic.
Okay, so yeah, I got that wrong.
As I think we reported the date of the stage one of the hydraulic upgrade meant that effectively there's been no bypasses since
Okay.
sometime in the last quarter of last year. I can't remember the
Right,
month.
right. Okay, 18 on page 14, reinstallation of the milli screens will occur in March. It's almost the end of March. Are we, how are we going?
Apologies, that should have been updated to April. The concrete remediation's taken a bit longer than was planned.
Okay, okay. 25, whoops. So this is Tungari Drive. Finish in late Q3, so that needs an update as well, does it? Yeah, sorry. Yes?
Yeah, probably. I'm sorry, I'm not
No, that's
immediately sure.
okay. Okay. And then, so I just like to understand, under treatment plant consent application, I read through that. Can you give us a bit more detail about what's been asked and how we've responded and what impact that might have?
Well, at the moment we have draft conditions which have been put forward by the to the hearing panel. So the hearing panel is still making their deliberations, and they haven't technically closed the hearing yet. So they will do that shortly, hopefully. In terms of what's being asked, there are some changes to the treatment plant operation and monitoring. I'm just trying to think through this quickly. One of them is that the ultraviolet disinfection will be turned to full power, as opposed to a variable power it is now. There are odour consent requirements that involve looking at best practicable option to ensure that there's no offensive odour beyond the boundary of the site, which I think we might have touched on last time, which is likely to require some kind of treatment upgrade with what we now know. And there's another liquid treatment condition that we have to keep the ammonia limits in the effluent, treated effluent within a certain parameter, which it is at the moment, but over the course of the coming years they'll have to be looked at closely each year. And there were other conditions which we've largely finished by now, and regarding the no bypass, so the hydraulic upgrade project, which is substantially complete but not fully finished, was one of the conditions that be completed by June this year.
So do we believe that we're on track? And I'll ask that question first.
Well, we're on track for we gave ourselves some contingency with the hydraulic upgrade, so we're certainly on track for June 2023. There's a bit of work to do on getting the odour, investigations underway, but it's in progress. Yep.
So can I ask, what might be the worst we could expect from consent conditions?
Through the chair, a 10-year consent rather than a 20-year consent. Ngāti Tawa would like a 10-year consent to hold us to account. We've advocated for a 20-year, given the cost of the project, which you see in front of you.
I understand that. Is there anything else?
I think Steve has articulated a number of things that Wellington Water have done to meet water quality and discharge concerns, so they put their front foot forward. The cost will go up. That cost is OPEX and CAPEX, which is is put forward with the unconstrained OPEX and CAPEX to the Eastern Central entity, but has also taken account of in Wellington Water's funding bid, if you like, to Porirua City Council, which you're consulting on through the draft annual plan. The exact cost we can't be quite certain of, but one way or another we can't walk away from the fact that Wellington Water is us, it's our wastewater treatment plant, and we have to run it. So it will be a higher cost, and I think we'd say that exactly the same for the landfill consent, for the global consent for stormwater, for the global consent for wastewater. It's the bar is increasing all the way up, and I think I was reminded this morning about 2008 we had the Foreshore and Seabed Act, which has been overturned, and customary rights will be debated fairly shortly through the courts, where we can see the environment in New Zealand will change significantly with iwi obtaining customary rights and new projects that anything new that we're trying to do with the foreshore and seabed in terms of wastewater, stormwater will be very difficult. So I think we're already moving in the right direction of lifting the bar.
Councillor Liggett, do you have any more subs? Well, maybe ask you.
Sorry,
because I just before you go any further
about
question with regards to any active consent hearing processes.
No.
I just want to make sure that I
No, that's
remind you
fine.
of that issue around not discussing on that part.
We're not. No, that's fine. Are we on to the capital project update yet, or
That was covered inside
that's
7.3, so
part of
you
it.
may choose to bring that up in that point.
okay? So I just wanted to ask. Sorry, others may have been gobsmacked by this, but I certainly may not have been, but I am. That the capital project for our holding tank may be delayed by 6 months. How can I put this nicely? Because of and the costs go up because of requirements regarding some lizards.
Any question? Any response from Wellington Water on that?
The lizard requirements have been coming in over the last few years, so I can think of the Omaroro Reservoir in Wellington having to deal with lizard relocation, a bridge up at Silverstream and Upper Hutt having to deal with lizard relocation, and one other.
Through the chair, the good news is, Councillor Leggett, we're experts in lizard work now. The shared pathway, we required a lizard plan. KO with the Bothamley Park sewer lizard management plan. So the good news.
I understand that. It's the 6 month delay.
Councillor, if there is a question, I'll allow you to rephrase it into a question. But if it's merely a comment, then I'm just going to,
So there will there be? How likely is it that there will actually be a 6 month delay because of lizard collection? And why couldn't we have done it sooner?
Well, there's two aspects to this. One is that the team are looking at whether they can undertake works on the half of the site where the lizards are judged to be not present. And with regard to sooner, there's a bit of a process in terms of getting the regulator to look at the application, which has added some unexpected delay.
if you have no more questions, Ross, I want to pass it on to Representative Allen. Please.
Thank you. Page 13.7, monthly average percentage of dry solids of dewatered sludge. Do you have daily records of that as well? Because the monthly average might be 18%, but I'd be quite interested to know what the lowest is.
We do have those records. I haven't got the information with me at the moment, but yeah, so I mean it's 18%. Obviously, it goes up and down around that.
Yeah.
I guess what I can say is we haven't been to the level of the consent for the wastewater treatment plant. We haven't been that low.
Which is 11%.
Yeah.
Oh, 11 for the landfill. But
Yeah, the landfill. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, generally around sort of hovers around 18%, but I think we've dropped it down as low as 15%, and there's been work going on with the dewatering equipment and the chemical system.
Is it possible to get a copy of those daily records?
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Your worship, the Mayor.
Sorry, the last bypass, the small one you said, I think it was a 30-minute timeframe. Some of us got emails about it and some of us didn't. Can we fix that system? Just a comment, because I got it and Jeff didn't.
Would you like to respond to it, David?
Yes, through you, Mr Chair. I did go back to Wellington Water's customer services team. The email list that they've got had some emails that needed correcting. An old one, for example, the chair's email address was altered, and also for our new committee members here as well have been added to those. So the email list should have been brought up to date, and that was about the middle of last week.
I won't be picky, but he has been a councillor for second term, so he should have got it straight away.
Any other questions? I do have questions myself, so I always give everybody else a chance first. Point 8, can we just be clear about when was the last wet weather related discharge event to date?
From memory, I don't have the exact figure. From memory, it was around September last year.
Okay.
We can dig out the exact dates.
So relating to that and to the point that was raised by Councillor Leggett, additional delays to the Central City wastewater treatment wastewater tank. Are Wellington Water satisfied that this does not pose an additional risk to wet water discharge events happening because of the extended delay to construction being complete?
Not with the wastewater treatment plant itself, but that may have some bearing on overflows from some of the JV pump stations.
Okay. Regarding the subsequent notification of the 15th March and the 21st of March, and I've acknowledged that that is outside of the reporting period for this committee, and obviously more information will come in the next committee meeting where this period is covered, but can we at least have a bit more commentary about the nature of the equipment failure or equipment issues? Is this an issue that is going to continue for some time while they're diagnosing the problem, as I understood from your comments at the start?
So, like I said, we have the expert on site at the moment. He's diagnosing the cause of the fault, and we'll have more information very soon on what's caused those issues. So until we have that diagnosis, then it may well continue. Yeah.
May I request of officers that members of this committee perhaps wish to give us an update but before the next committee meeting, as Wellington Water are able to give information because of the nature of these unusual compared to wet weather discharge events. It would be better to be proactive in terms of passing on information, especially as it would lead to mitigation or rectification of these issues.
Through Chair, more than happy to do that.
Okay. Regarding point 18, this was raised before by Councillor Leggett, I believe, around the Miller screens. Again, is there any issues with the delays on those components to operation at the plant? Can we get some clarity around that?
No, there's no issues. There's a standby screen in operation, which I think the council, the committee members would have seen on the visit, which has been operating effectively. The delays are sort of a construction thing with the placement of the repair concrete.
My last question is actually following on from the Mayor's comment around notification. One of the events, the 15th of March, did not have a notification through the Twitter account that is run by Wellington Water, but the 21st of March did. So I'm just going to focus this around Twitter. Is there a process in place where the comms team at Wellington Water are consistently going to indicate to the public when there has been a discharge notification, as they have done in the instance of the 21st of March incident?
The process should be consistent. I'll follow up as to why it wasn't. But yeah, we shouldn't be changing it, and my apologies if it wasn't consistent.
Okay, I'm noting that that you're investigating it. Could we please make sure that is followed up either at the next meeting in the report or before that as well, so that we can have some certainty about that?
Will do.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Leggett.
Sorry, there was one extra. Can you explain to me, this is with regard to the wastewater treatment plant discharge consent again, wetland application, wetland consent. What wetland is it? And where is it located?
As I understand, there was a small coastal wetland within 100 metres of the discharge point down on the coast. And so the rules around wetland, and I'm not a planner by trade, so I can't give a detailed explanation, but I understand the rules around wetland, the National Policy Statement for Freshwater changed around December, and that had a bearing, and I can't recall whether it was included in the final consent or not.
Through the chair, I think where we got to with Greater Wellington, the planner agreed with Wellington Water that it's no longer required. Wellington Water was asked to put in an application for a wetland, but with the change in legislation, no longer required. And the last I heard was the hearings panel had asked for that just to be checked legally. So we're waiting for that to come in the decision making.
We haven't got that yet.
No, but I'm pretty sure if both sides are agreeing and the legislation's changed, but it will come in the result. But Wellington Water had put the relevant information for the wetland in front of the panel.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. So we've had a good old corridor about that. This motion has been moved. It has been seconded. We've had a chance to talk about it. So I'm going to put it to a vote. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Abstentions? I declare the motion carried. Report 7.2, Wastewater Treatment Plant and Spicer Landfill Joint Committee Financial Report from October to December of 2022. I will move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Oh, what the hell. Councillor Duncan, why not? You looked at me. Officer comment. David Down, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just one comment regarding the forecasting, particularly for the landfill. I'm showing holding forecast for revenue. It will probably be revising that upwards. We may be looking at a higher revenue than that. That would be for the next report to come in for the committee. Other than that, it would be fairly unremarkable, and I'll take the report as read and ask for any questions.
Questions? Representative Allen.
Yes, thank you. On these reports, can we have it clarified what numbers we're talking in? So is this $100, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands? Sorry? It's in thousands, because at the moment I think you've only in $8 according to this report. So it's in thousands. Thank you.
Is that possible to make sure that's adhered to? Good practice there. Any other questions on that? Sorry, Councillor Leggett.
Sorry, I think I had the wrong page number. Something about the Spicer consents renewal. Is that the next one, is it? Okay, that's fine.
We are on report 7.2, the financial report.
Yeah, I've skipped over it. Sorry.
Do you have a question in regards to 7.2?
No.
Okay, I have one. It's just in regards to the revenue. Is that just so we're clear? Is that going significantly above? I believe we have a trigger point here. Is it's like $50,000? Would that have caused a trigger had that information been in this report?
Yes, it would have.
Okay, so I'm just noting that we should probably put that on notice for future. Any other questions? Okay, so I've put the motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? Carried. Now we're on to report 7.3, Spicer Landfill Joint Committee update from September to December 2022. I've moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? Representative Allen, thank you. Officer comment, David, please. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. I'll take the report as read, but just introducing Jason Penny from Tonkin Taylor to the committee. Jason is our odour expert who's been guiding us through a lot of the high-level advice in regards to our odour management and current situation. and Jason is the Tonkin Taylor officer who has been assessing for us whether we're in a position to apply for, make our consent application yet. So Jason gave the information to us in December last year and to hold on application of consent and did a presentation for us a couple of weeks ago with the same advice. I've attached that presentation to this report and hoping that if the committee had any particular questions specifically for around odour and the hold pattern on the consent, that Mr Penny would be able to answer questions for the committee. I also wanted to bring to the committee's attention that there was an inquiry this morning regarding the odour complaint numbers. So if I could address that as briefly as possible, Mr Chair. So if you look at the graph on page 28, this is our odour report for the up to the month of the end of February. And just taking your attention to page 34, that is EnviroWaste's KPI table that they submit to us on a monthly basis. And it was quite rightly pointed out that EnviroWaste for the month of December last year reported 122 complaints, whereas clearly from our graph we've noted more than 122. That number for December on our graph is actually 163. So just for clarification, the numbers that we report are the observation days. So that is 163 times during December that an odour has been observed. Now, from Christmas Day, Boxing Day, etc., all the way through to the 4th of January, when our own staff came back on board, all of those complaints, there's 41 of them in that period, all went to our after-hours office. Upon return to our regular business here on the 4th of January, our customer service staff then start processing all of those and putting them into our customer service system where they become formal notifications through to EnviroWaste. The number that EnviroWaste have noted in their KPIs are the number of formal notifications that they received for December, which was 122, which is the 163 less the 41 that came in after hours. So they are counting the formal notifications at the very end of the complaints process. What I'm counting in my graph here, which is more relevant, I think, is the number of times an actual complaint was made during the month, regardless of whether it came in after hours or when the complaint actually hit us officially in our own system. So wanted to point that out. Now, I did mention last time that perhaps we could take that number out of EnviroWaste's report. It's not as relevant as how many complaints were received during December, but I wanted to put a few options to the committee. I could simply take that number out. We could ask EnviroWaste to make the same measurement, but the reality would be that would be what we would be letting them know. Otherwise, we could make the same counts, and I could simply put the defining clause in the KPI table. This is what this number is related to, and it will be, most of the time, it will be different from ours. And I'd like to just park that as a few options for the committee so that we don't look as though we've got two conflicting counts that are being made. I think that's enough from me, Mr Chair, and leave it up to comments. Oh, sorry, there is one further thing, and I had this put to me this morning, and to apologise to the committee, I had said I would rectify this last time, and it's been an oversight on my part not correcting this for this report.
Thank you, David. I'm going to go open up for questions. Representative Allen.
No surprises. Page 28.7F and G. Can you tell us how far along you are with trialling the removal of sludge to another facility?
Yes, through the chair, we have determined that Bonnie Glen have capacity, and we have determined that under certain operating conditions, our treatment plant can put sludge out to the moisture levels required by Bonnie Glen, although it is difficult operationally for them to do that. Bonnie Glen has a slightly higher threshold of moisture content than what our plant is currently putting out. So you heard Wellington Water talk about 18%. Bonnie Glen look for 20%. It's possible, but it would be difficult for them to do that. And we have not yet found somebody who can transport it for us.
Question. Page 29.7H, the independent review that's been commenced. When's this likely to be finished?
Through the Chair, so we are doing this in two distinct phases. The first phase by the consultant doing the work for us, Morrison Lowe. Morrison Lowe are looking at a desktop review of all the information that we've given them, and will be presenting an initial assessment to us in the first week of April. Based on that assessment, they may then elect to move to a more detailed review, which would include actual interviews with key personnel, for example, and we would take that over the next month, the month of April, if that needed to be done.
The next, on the same page, number 8, you anticipate that the demand will drop off once summer has ended. Can I just ask why? Because when you look at the graph over the page, it doesn't seem to drop off in previous years by much.
Yeah, what we normally experience is that, particularly, I think it's following the Easter period, we normally see a bit of a late summer, post-summer decline in the tonnages coming in. It is not apparent from that graph we've got there, which is probably in too summarised form to actually see that. But historically, there is certainly a spike late December through to about March.
That's up, thank you. Page 30.12, can you confirm that that meter is now operational, up and running? The leach flow meter?
Yes, confirming that meter was operating as of 10th of March.
Okay. Same page, point 17, when we start talking, or 16 and 17, start talking about the resource recovery network projects. How's this going to impact on the disposal of sludge at the landfill, where there needs to be a certain amount of waste to go with it?
Yes, so if the resource recovery network, especially the construction and demolition diversion facility, is successful, it will have a fairly significant impact on our ability to accept sludge. Our projections are that it would mean we would have to potentially cap how much sludge, we would have to cap how much sludge we might have coming in.
One more question. Page 31.27, talking about the original project cost for the Spicer consent renewal. Those figures, does that just cover the application for consent, or does that cover the building of the extended landfill?
The budget for the consent is to cover all of the work required to go into the consent application, the lodging of the consent, and then an allowance for the post-application work, hearings, additional material needed, and so on. It is not related to construction of anything.
Councillor Duncan, sorry, you...
Oh, sorry.
You got it?
Sorry, just page 34, on the table on page 34, can you just explain to me what LTTs and MTTs are?
LTT, that is lost time injury, and MTT, and I apologise, I can't remember what the acronym is, but it's, from memory, it's an injury that's occurred where there is no actual time lost.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, following on from the resource recovery network one, it tells us there that the report to consider potential operating models for the facility are expected to be completed by the end of March. Are they completed?
No, they're not completed yet.
The Spicer landfill resource consent renewal, oh yeah, that's the costings, I've got that. Page 34, second of the assessment from the Greater Wellington. General Ops last paragraph says, it's noted that the annual report was 7 weeks late, but there was no explanation for why that report was 7 weeks late.
Through you, Mr Chair, that was a slip internally within my team. So we had a change of staff the handover, we had forgotten to, well, we had the annual report, but basically didn't file it in time with Greater Wellington.
Great. And one final question. On page 38, it tells us, this is from Greater Wellington, the compliance assessment tells us that our consent incurs variable compliance monitoring charges, which they say are likely to increase. Do we have any idea of what those sort of charges are that they're laying on us?
Mr Chair, I could, for the current financial year, specifically table what the charges are that we've had to pay through Greater Wellington for the year. With regard to how many more charges, we could give an estimate, but it would depend on the number of events or the number of occasions Greater Wellington would have to go out and do an inspection for us. If you wish, I can include that in the next report as a statement of the current or the total to date.
Please proceed on that.
And it's than a question, but it's interesting that Greater Wellington highlights all these problems, and I congratulate you guys on all the things you're trying to do to control the odours. I mean, there is a plethora of ideas you're trying. Is there a list of things that you can go through that you know that Greater Wellington says you should try to actually control odour, or do they just sit there and say no, that's not good enough?
Yeah, Mr Chair, we meet regularly with Greater Wellington, and on a monthly basis now we're meeting with chief executives as well. The purpose of those meetings is to update them on all of the actions that we've taken, what we've said we're going to do, what we have done. We have had some assistance in terms of suggestions at Greater Wellington officer level. We're basically just trying all that we can. But as I said, we're advising them what we're doing, and they're just keeping a track on all of that.
I have Councillor Leggett and I'll have Councillor McNulty.
And I guess this is all related to our resource consent renewal. Can you, and we're now delaying it because we're advised not to do it because of odour complaints and the fact that we'd probably wouldn't have a show of getting it through. You say that odour effects trigger the requirement for a more robust alternatives under the assessments under the RMA. Aside from additional consultation with Ngāti Toa, what else would it cause us to do?
Sorry, was there a particular reference in the report? Sorry.
You don't have it?
It was point 25 and probably to a certain extent 26 of the report prepared by the council.
So it's 24, 25 and 26. Yeah. Yeah, this is... Have you got the page 31?
I do.
Yeah.
So what it would trigger is the thing that would trigger the need for a more robust alternatives assessment is potential for what are called significant effects. So offensive and injectionable odour of the type that Greater Wellington has confirmed that the landfill has caused would be considered a type of significant effect, and therefore the RMA requires in that consent application that an alternatives assessment is provided, which is what that refers to. It doesn't trigger anything else, as far as I'm aware.
So what's an alternatives assessment? Is that would that contain some of the things that we're doing already? No?
Yeah, so the alternatives assessment is basically, other than continuing to extend the landfill and continuing to have a landfill where we do, what are the alternatives to it? Those alternatives may be anything from constructing a new landfill somewhere else through to keeping the one we've got where it is but operating it in a different way, or adding new technologies to help divert waste, or whatever else could be done that's different from what we're doing today.
Okay.
And what would be proposed in the application?
Councillor McNulty.
Kia ora, David, and thank you for welcoming me into your whare. A few questions, I guess, to help me sharpen my thinking about what I can bring back to Wellington so we can try and be a positive neighbour. So I encourage you to speak frankly as much as you can within the confines of being diplomatic. In terms of 7G, talk about the other two landfills in the region being at capacity for sludge. Is it capacity for sludge in terms of there's not enough excess rubbish to mix at that 4:1 ratio, or do you see it just being simply that they don't want to take in the waste?
No, it's your first comment. It is literally capacity with regard to the amount of general waste coming in versus the amount of sludge they're getting.
Would there be the possibility for you to bring in some of your general waste to keep that balance? Or they don't want to entertain that?
It could be a conversation we could have. It would, unfortunately, accelerate the rate at which the other two landfills are also reaching capacity in the near future as well.
I'm just thinking through this trial period while we're trying to understand what the odour complaint issue is. Could we be a better neighbour in terms of that assistance?
I guess the issue would be that for each truckload of sludge that we were to take, for example, to Silverstream, we are needing to accompany it with 5 truckloads of general waste. So it's not the sludge so much, it's the additional volume that needs to go with it.
Yeah, okay. I'll go in order. Just a note for 14. Can you do a correction on Councillor Randall and my name, please? Has it been listed in there? As much as I love being Councillor McNutley, Randall is Randle, so I'll minor. Just vanity, pure vanity. On to points 22 to 27. So, has there been any approach from from your officers to Wellington City Council or vice versa around assisting you through this resource consent process? I know that it's a technical and complicated piece of work. Any cross conversations or expertise we've been able to offer?
No, we haven't sought Wellington City Council's direct support or offers or sought offers of assistance. The budget that we have enables us to do the work on our own regard, and we haven't done that.
Okay.
Through the Chair, David, putting in the odour monitor in Tawa, we've had assistance from Wellington City Council.
Yeah, that's actually correct. So we have we're putting in an air monitor in the Tawa neighbourhood. As it happens, the very best spot for it so happens to be Scenic Reserve. Wellington City Council's Parks officers were beautifully accommodating and just said, go ahead and do it.
Awesome.
I have also had very kind offers of support directly from Councillor Randall and yourself, and we work very well generally with Wellington City Council peers, so those small things that could help are not a problem.
Cool, that's good to hear. And finally, hopefully it's in scope because it's not directly addressed in the report, but I guess looking at the future of Spicer, has the government's decision around the container deposit scheme had any implications in your thinking around how the facility is going to go?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's a bit of a blow for us. To be perfectly honest, we were looking to the container deposit scheme to be able to lessen some of what might have been coming in that wasn't being recycled and possibly diverting a little bit of the waste away. It won't actually make, with the withdrawal of the scheme, there is therefore no difference made because there was no impact in the first place just yet. Just a bit of a, unfortunate removal.
I do have questions. So, encouraged to hear progress on the biogas to energy opportunity. Obviously, the full report has not been furnished yet, but could we get an expansion on what, as officers, criteria about how to manage the assessment and what's coming in? Things that I was thinking around were around, do we have, does this require them to do H2S scrubbing? Will it be connected to the national grid? Those sorts of questions. Do you have that as part of your criteria in terms of assessment?
Mr. Chair, what we have at the moment is a summary, a high-level proposal from the company that's approached us. The basics of the proposal is that they will install, own and operate all of the equipment. There's no financial liability on us. There is a proposal for return to us, which needs to be negotiated. with the expectation that they can produce enough electricity to power the equivalent of 1,200 houses, which sounds great. And over the next few weeks, we'll be going to more detailed negotiation with them, which is then our opportunity to find out all of those things that would form part of the final contract with them.
Okay. In terms of the report, while I'm mindful that this is with a commercial provider, to what degree will this committee see the details of that plan, or rather the public, in terms of the proposal?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure of the extent to which we need to come to the committee to seek approval or to give information. I would need to seek advice on that. I'm very, very happy to obviously bring it to the committee as a wonderful project, but the extent to which I need to open it up, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think through the chair, what we're trying to do is let you know we were proceeding with this initiative. We've previously made all our data available on gas, and this is the first time we've got a commercial party that's available. Your next meeting, I think, is on the 30th of May. I'm looking at Jack, so it's about 2 months away. But in terms of, if you wanted to, in terms of your delegation, we could bring it to you in public excluded so that you could see it. And we just hold off with the party until that time. But I would be sort of hoping, given the sort of overview David's given you, that we could proceed.
I understand that is an option. We reserve the right to do so to the public excluded. However, the public, I think, would also want to share in knowing, some of the details of a proactive measure that could potentially benefit, as you say, up to 1,200 households into the contribution of electricity to the national grid. So I'll leave it there for the time being, but I'm going to point that out that this is an opportunity for us to be proactive in that disclosure where we can be. Moving on to the, you've covered off the independent review question which I had, which thank you. Question C. I thought the swap analysis was during this time period. Am I incorrect? And if it is that due for presentation at the next committee meeting?
There was a further swap conducted, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so the final report on that would be available, should be available for the next committee meeting.
Okay. And in terms of, this was kind of talked to before by Councillor Leggett around the alternatives and the role of Ngāti Toa in this. Can you give some commentary about how that engagement and how that process is done, and in terms of getting a thorough alternatives report prepared?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so Ngāti Toa are involved in 2 different ways at the moment. The first is that they are in the process of providing us with a cultural impact assessment on the overall application that we're intending to make. So that's been prepared by them and has been received by us as a very early draft as of the week before last. So they will have that role. Secondly, we have asked them if they could also play a role in the finalising of the alternatives assessment. So that would mean that for each of the alternative options that we come up with, Ngāti Toa would be part of the team. If we can get them to join us to be part of the team, that would be then casting their cultural values lens over each of the options that we might be putting forward in the assessment. That piece of work is still to come.
Okay. Thank you. The last question was just around the air testing station. Can you just expand on the time period of the testing station? My understanding is it's for a 6-month period. Is there any reason why the methodology would not be extended to 12 months to deal with any possibility of seasonal issues in the recording of data?
No, none at all. I chose a 6-month period initially. That would have, just as a period to be able to give us enough of a baseline to be able to measure any effectiveness or any changes in the odour complaints. However, if it was valuable, or if Tonkin Taylor said, let's do an entire seasonal period, then yes, we could do it for 12 months.
I'm going to have no more questions. Does anybody else have any other thing? Oh, Councillor Duncan?
It was just one about the leachate coming from the tip and the coliform, fecal coliform exceedances. Tonkin Taylor's explanation is it's probably the bird life there. Is Greater Wellington happy with that explanation?
Mr Chair, we have not long ago received this compliance report and we haven't sat down and had a thorough debrief with Greater Wellington on it. But I can ask that question when we get to do that if they're happy with that explanation. Yep.
Representative Allen.
Just further to that, the required action then by the 17th of March, has that taken place or not from the report? Page 37.
Yep, sorry, the action required on the 17th of March has been extended to the 17th of April. But we are following that up to make sure that we've made an adequate response by 17 April.
Yeah.
No more questions? No. Okay. Kororo's been had. The motion has been moved and seconded. I will put it to a vote. All those in favour say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried. So, I will declare the meeting closed at 4 p.m. and we will all again join in and recite our karakia for the end. Whakamutu. Kia horo te marino. Kia whakapapapau namu te moana. He huarahi mā tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu. Aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. Hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora no